Hi, everyone. It's your friendly neighborhood ex-Muslim. I'm joined by a Pakistani ex-Muslim by the name of Ali Malik today. Ali is a friend of mine. We've been chatting on Twitter for a while now, and we became friends. I can't even remember when, but it's been a while now. So this conversation is long overdue. We're going to be going through his story on how he left Islam, relationship with his family, typical things that happen when you leave Islam and how it influences and affects your life, both in good ways and bad ways. And of course, there's also bad ways that it influences your life, not just good ways. And that's why we want to talk about this. So, in case you're new here, this is a new channel. My original channel had an issue with monetization due to, let's call it a glitch. So I created a new channel. Well, I already had the channel. So we're here on the new channel. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe. If you're listening on a podcast app, great. So that's good stuff. Do leave a review as well at the end. Now, Ali, how's it going?
All good, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Good, good, good. So let's go back to the beginning. You were born in Pakistan?
I was born in Pakistan in a fairly conservatively religious family, like most families are in Pakistan. Uh,
Hmm.
but my family's had troubles with Islam in the beginning because my maternal grandfather's extended family, in fact, immediate family as well, had moved from Salafi Islam to Ahmadiyya back in the 60s. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so they were living in southern part of Punjab back then, and they had these new neighbors moving in who were Ahmadis, and them being Salafis thought, oh, this is a golden opportunity for them. They're gonna start preaching Islam to them, and they're gonna bring them into Salafi Islam. But it goes both ways, I guess. They started giving my grandfather's brother uh, some literature as well. He started consuming some Ahmadiyya literature and decided to go into Ahmadiyya Islam. And then one after the other, most of my grandfather's family started going towards Ahmadiyya Islam.
Oh.
Uh, yeah, after a while, my grandfather decided. My mom was still a child back then, I think, in the 60s, 70s. They decided to move away from there. So they moved a whole day's drive away to northern Punjab somewhere, just so they're not around those people who are Ahmadis now. They came to this new city, built a new life, went to the biggest mosque in the city, biggest Salafi mosque in the city, recited their Shahada again, uh, just in case, like subconsciously, they had admitted to Mirza Ghulam Ahmad being a prophet after Muhammad. Uh, so yeah, that was that. And I grew up in that atmosphere because they had seen that the relationship with that part of the family was quite tarnished, severely tarnished, because I went with my grandfather to his elder brothers when his elder brothers died. And my grandfather and me, we were standing on a side when they were praying the janaza. My grandfather didn't want to be part of his own brother's funeral just because he was an Ahmadi and my grandmother was a Salafi. So yeah, I grew up with my mother's side of the family. My initial uh, teachings of Islam were according to the Salafist form of Islam. We call them Ahle Hadith. They're not mukallad. They don't adhere to any of the four Imams in Sunni Islam. They say,
Oh,
uh,
wow. So
yeah.
I'm surprised that Ahl Hadith or this Wahhabi movement is so big in Pakistan, even back then.
It's not big, but it's quite fundamental. So whatever communities they have, because mostly Pakistanis are Sunnis, either Deobandis or Brelvi, will come to that because I've had my brushes with Deobandis as well,
Mm.
with Tabligis as well. So initial teachings are about Salafi Islam. I learned praying and reciting everything from a Salafi source in the beginning. But I think after my 10th birthday or so, we moved to my father's side of the family, and then they started teaching me their version of Islam and how I should be praying. For 3 years before that, I'd already been praying the Salafist way, the Ahl
Just
Hadith way.
raising hands every.
Rafa Yadan and Amil bil Jahar and Shahada with lots of bullets firing. So we'd been doing that. And that was quite confusing for a 10 years old
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you, like, how did that make you feel?
It was quite confusing. I remember the first time I was doing Rafa Yadan in the mosque. My own cousin, my
Can you explain that?
sorry,
Rafadain, can you explain in English?
Rafa Yadan in English. So it's like in a normal prayer, from standing up to when you bend down, go to ruku, you have to raise your hand. Every time you say Allahu Akbar, you have to raise your hands. That's basically Rafa Yadan. And Salafis justify saying Muhammad in his even in his later part of the life was still doing Rafa Yadan.
Yeah.
There is a story behind Rafa Yadan. We can go into that.
Yeah, you want to tell that? It's kind of funny.
The story is the mushrikeen of Makkah uh, had embraced Islam just on, like, not from their heart, just for the show, and they'd come to a mosque to pray, and they'd have their idols under their arms, in their armpits, and to break that, Allah thought, I have an idea. Tell them to raise their hands every time.
They put the idols in the armpits?
Yeah, they used to bring.
I mean, I heard this story too. I didn't think much about it. But when I think about it now, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's just like
Yeah, it was Allah's original thought.
they're going to the prayer and they're pretending and they're putting. And what about the beginning of the prayer? Like, how do they do it at the beginning? Because you still, everybody does at the beginning. They
Mhm.
raise their hands at the time.
Clinch, maybe if you just do it once, you clinch, and then you have to let go after a while.
So how do you, what was going on through your head when you were exposed to this change in like theology, let's call it, and fiqh too? Like,
It wasn't massively different because even within Deobandis, there are two further sects. Not many people know that. About 80 to 90% of Deobandis are what you see, the Tablighi Jamaat and Deobandi, but 10% of Deobandis are also Wahhabi. So we
really?
were from that 10% of, they call them Mawati Deobandi. So there's Hayati Deobandi, there's Mawati Deobandi. So it wasn't massively different.
Okay.
Yeah, so the notion of shirk and bid'ah was still there. That was the two of the most, like, biggest components of Wahhabi and Salafi Islam. You're not doing shirk and bid'ah. Rest is fine.
Yeah.
And Rafa then was a sunnah anyways. So people on my paternal side, they were just trying to tell me it was just a sunnah because this mosque you're coming to now doesn't do Rafa Yadan. It's fine. You don't have to do it. It's a sunnah. You do it, it's good. You don't do it, it doesn't matter. It's not part of the frayad of your prayer.
You should do this. Sunnahs are good, right?
Sunnah is good, right? So anyways, it was quite confusing, but after a while, practices just became like it's something that you do anyways, and I was still learning, watching what my elders were doing. So thing is, when you're growing up in Pakistan, it's impossible to not be exposed to the Tablighi Jamaat. So that's where the mosque, my grandfather's mosque on my father's side, was Tablighi Jamaat mosque, and the Tablighi Jamaat would come, and I was quite inspired by Tablighi Jamaat. Let's say, because yes, you're not making anybody Muslim, but you're reminding the Muslim Ummah about praying, because not many people pray 5 times. You go, you leave your house, do this struggle for Islam and learn about Islam whenever you go. So anyways, after I turned 15 or 16, every school holidays, midterm, summer holidays, winter holidays, I just started going with the Jamaats.
Can I just explain to everyone what that is?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So before I do that, I just want to say thank you to P for the super chat, weekly zakat to Abdullah, likes and subscribe. Thanks to Ali Malik for sharing. I don't know why YouTube censors the word zakat. You can't put a super chat with the word zakat. You have to like type it out.
Really?
I don't know. It's a censored word for some reason. Anyways, thank you, P, for your support. And so Tabligh Jamaat is something I also had a little close encounter with once, but not really got into it too much because I was more on the Salafi side. So people that don't know, Tabligh Jamaat is a movement in from within Sunni Islam that was made by, I think his name is Muhammad Zakaria. He's a Sufi guy that wrote this book called Fadali Amal, which has all of these weak hadith, and some of them are even
Sorry, but this is, yeah.
like really shady stuff. And he made this movement where basically men go and they live in the masjid, in the mosque, sometimes for 3 days, 7 days, 40 days. And while they're in the mosque, the wives are at home doing everything, and they don't get to see the husbands. The husbands are gone from their lives. They even go once in a lifetime. They're supposed to go for 4 months. So they've
Yeah.
added all of these new rituals to Islam. And I, like I said, I was interested. I went once for 3 nights, and I was like, I didn't like it. I personally didn't like
Really?
it. But anyway, so tell us some more about like that experience. So you said you all of your holidays you used to go for this thing? Oh,
Yes.
yeah, sorry, I missed out one more thing. And then while you're at the mosque, they go from door to door trying to get people to come to the mosque.
Yes, that's called gasht. After every Asr prayer, you go, because after Maghrib prayer, the evening prayer, you do a small sermon every
Yeah,
night. And
yeah.
then after Asr, you just leave the mosque, go door to door, knock on the people's door, and you have these learned sentences. You can't even change the sentences they tell you. It's set sentences. You have to say there's 3 sentences. You tell them, you are Muslim, I'm Muslim, and through the seal of the prophethood after Muhammad, there's not going to be any more prophets. And the duty of preaching Islam is on to us now, and we have to talk about it in the mosque after Maghrib prayer.
Okay.
Come, it'll be beneficial for both of us. So you bring people in, start doing that.
Yeah.
I have nothing but good memories of actually Tablighi Jamaat, because it kind of became like school friends or street friends just going away, living in a mosque. Quite fun. I did itikaf for the same reason. I did itikaf 5 years in a row.
I like itikaf. So the itikaf is basically, if people don't know, the last 10 nights of Ramadan, you hide away like a hermit in the mosque, and you're not supposed to even talk to anyone. I used to talk to people too, but you're supposed to talk to anyone. You're supposed to seclude yourself and worship, right? The Tabligh Jamaat, I think the reason I had a problem with it was because I had this fear of doing bid'ah, and I was like, I didn't like how rigid it was. I didn't like that you had to do this, and then you had to read hadith, and then you have to read Quran. And there's like a strict routine they put on you, and you have
Yes.
to ask the sheikh everything. Sheikh, can I go to the washroom, or can I do this? Or like, and then when we wanted to leave, he wouldn't let us leave.
No, the imam is your in charge in
Hey,
those periods.
stay one more night. I was like, no, I'm done. I want to go home.
That's what happened with me as well. So I was still Salafi, even though I was going with the Tablighi Jamaat. I
Yeah.
was still Salafi, so I was adhering to Salafi's teachings. And there'd come some hadiths in Fazail Amal, the one you mentioned, and it's littered with Zaif hadiths. There's one of these hadiths when Adam had committed the sin, and then Allah is angry, and Adam says, "Oh, I've seen Muhammad written somewhere. I ask you for the sake of Muhammad, forgive me."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but that didn't sit well with me, because all my life I'd been told you can't ask Allah for the sake of somebody else, because you have a direct connection with Allah. You don't need you need to bring a third party in if you don't have a direct connection with the person. So for us, for Salafis, it was bid'ah to bring a third party. Sorry?
And maybe even shirk.
Even shirk, yes.
Yeah.
So that is.
I remember that same sort of dilemma, because I remember debating with my Sufi Muslim friends that, like, I told them I used to be Smiley, and we used to pray to Aga Khan, who was alive. And, this is weird, and I don't want to do this anymore, because I learned from the Quran, we only worship Allah. But apparently there's some hadith that people used to say in the name of Muhammad, or by intercession of your prophet, or something like that. So Sufis will actually make dua to Allah, wilayat, or through Muhammad, or something like
To
that.
Muhammad, yeah.
And I never felt comfortable with that as a strict Wahhabi, Salafi, whatever. But apparently in Sunni Islam, and that's one of the things that they battle out over, right? They're like, oh, you're doing shirk. And they're like, no, this is not shirk, this is Sunnah.
For Salafis, it is shirk. So for me, it didn't sit well. And there were a couple of more examples, because when Tablighi Jamaat goes somewhere, and when whatever they're offered, and if Amir says you have to eat it, you have to eat it. So I was away for 10 days, I think, and I was 4 hours away from my home city as well. And this offering comes in, and offering is for khatam. Khatam is something like Brailwi Muslims do for their peers and for their awliyas, for the sacred people, and it's not for Allah. For Salafis, khatam was haram because it's something that's for somebody other than Allah. You can only eat the food that's been
So
offered to Allah.
the offering, they're making like a sacrifice, like a qurbani or something?
It doesn't have to be sacrifice. It can be milk or rice pudding or any biryani, any sort of food they cook, and they say this food is for my peer, which is a saint, let's say. They believe in Sufis do. And their food, the khatam food, came in the mosque, and Amir said, yes, it's an offering, we have to be nice and we have to eat it. And
Yeah.
I'm sitting there looking at my Amir thinking, I can't eat that.
Yeah.
It's haram for me. Like the first time I was slapped in my house by my uncle was because I was eating khatam food.
Oh,
It was a big taboo for me to eat khatam food. It was haram.
yeah.
I thought I'm not eating it, Amir Sahab. You're doing it wrong. And that was a big deal, disagreeing with your Amir. So,
Yeah.
and Fazail Imam, and I disagree with. So, essentially, I decided Tablighi Jamaat are way too concerned with their own elder people, like their own bazurgs and stuff, than they are with Muhammad or Quran. So,
Yeah.
I said, okay, Salafism is the best. This is Muhammad. This is Quran. You don't care about any of the imams or peers or saints, whoever comes after, because they're all fallible human beings. We have to follow the infallibility of Muhammad.
Mhm. And
So,
some
yeah,
one is saying this is a Jehovah's Witness type thing. Yeah, it is kind of like that.
yeah, it's very much like that. Yeah, that's the kind of light Muslim I was.
Oh yeah. Nice, nice. So you were going, and so you were actually probably pretty religious then. You were praying. I mean, for you to go and stay in the mosque for so many days at a time, and that's quite a commitment, a religious commitment, isn't it?
Yeah, and it had become a part of life after a while. Like itikaf, staying in the mosque, and Tablighi Jamaat every Thursday evening for the markaz, their biggest center in the city. We used to go there. It was just a practice that we did without even thinking, because it was just so much part of my religion at the time.
Mm.
Yeah.
So what happened after that?
After that, so if we're coming towards my questioning of Islam for the first time, not Islam Muhammad, because I was fascinated by Muhammad. He was one person we were supposed to emulate in our life. He was the person we look up, the exemplary human being that was infallible. So I had a pretty set picture of Muhammad, of Muhammad in my head, and I was a zealot. Muhammad had been taught to me. There's a picture that's been drawn in my head through my childhood and my educational years, and that was Muhammad for me. So, anyways, I was 17, and we went for Hajj, all of my family, and I started hanging out in the library because there was a lot of time to kill. Just reading about Muhammad, just taking it in, everything there is to about Muhammad, and that's
In Saudi?
in Saudi. I
And
was in
they had books in English or Urdu, or what were you reading about
Urdu.
that? Oh,
Urdu. Every library they have books, like loads of books in Urdu.
oh,
There are sermons in Urdu. There are muftis sitting in every corner of the both Haramain, giving you fatwas in Urdu.
oh,
Yeah,
wow.
Urdu is quite prominent in Saudi,
Oh yeah.
especially in Makkah and Medina. I don't know how Urdu has just become like unofficial language of Islam somehow. It's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
I've seen people who studied Islam in Africa, but they were taught Urdu for some reason. What's the connection there?
Interesting. Yeah. I guess based on the scholars and the books that have been written now, it's become like a sort of thing you need to learn.
Yeah, it's just kind of become a complementary to Islam now. Yeah, anyways, it was the first time I was sitting in Masjid an-Nabawi, the first time I came across the fact that Muhammad had had a child from a slave.
Oh, yeah.
having slave to begin with, and then having a child with them. That was a big thing for me. And I still remember it to this day quite vividly, going back to the page again and thinking,
Mm,
why, what's Londi? What's a concubine? Why is there is no nikah and he's had a child?
yeah.
Whereas all my life I've been told like nikah is something that you need. Like it's something that makes sex legal for you. It's something that you can have kids after. That was the first thing about Muhammad. I say, okay, he's had humans as his slaves because all my life we were told that he's freed slave. There is Saad bin Abi Waqas or Zaid bin Haris. He's bought slaves and then set them free. So he was anti-slavery in my head. But then reading that he's had slaves, uh, that was the first crack in the foundation.
Hey,
And
can I
then,
think?
yes,
This was so you went from Pakistan to Hajj, or were you in
Pakistan.
UK? So this is going from a Muslim country
Yes.
to Hajj, and you didn't know about the slavery thing.
No.
So they don't talk about that.
No, it's extremely selective what's taught about Muhammad. And Muhammad had been part of my life for, I think, at least a couple of hours every day from the age of 5 to 17. And
Wow.
nobody had told me. It's part of syllabus in primary, secondary, high school. It's madrasa. It's all to do with Tablighi
Yeah.
Jamaat, mosque, everything. Nobody had told me that he's had women slaves that he had child with.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
that's wild. It's
Yeah.
surprising to me because I mean I'm a sort of I mean I learned Islam on my own because I converted from Ismailism, so I read the book and everything myself. I'm kind of shocked that like they didn't even mention that. That's crazy. So okay, so what happened? Sorry for interrupting.
No, that's okay. This clash, it might seem nominal now, but at the time, it clashed with the picture I had of Muhammad's perfection. So,
Oh yeah.
this is this is something that's been told to us is wrong, and now it has that. Then I started reading more into Muhammad's personal life about his wives and everything, and then him taking up more than 4 wives didn't make sense all of a sudden, and Quran's being his convenience. Whenever taking up fifth wife, Sahaba say, "Oh, Ya Muhammad, calm down. We are only allowed 4. You're taking a fifth one." Right that moment, Gabriel comes and tells him it's Allah's allowing Muhammad to take whomever he wants. So that convenience, and then Aisha, the notion of Aisha's age. It was the moment I started questioning the perfection, everything else just started making less and less sense by the day.
Mm,
Uh,
interesting. I just gonna read this comment from Bangladesh. I'm from Bangladesh, and slavery thing is not taught here too. So it seems like I guess they just gloss over it, not just in Pakistan, but in many places of the world.
Yes, because they have to indoctrinate kids into thinking that these are our own values. Because let's face it, most of the Muslim world now, especially South Asia, slavery is considered bad,
Yeah.
and they still have to picture Muhammad to be the perfect human being that's ever lived,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they can't teach both of them at the same time, or these values clash. So they have to be extremely selective about what they teach about Muhammad. Just
It's
so
not a thing at all, though. You were saying it's nominal. Because I mean, even Jonathan Brown, when he wrote his book on slavery, he said one of the most difficult things to square for him was this concept, not just slavery, but like concubine, sex slavery. It's very difficult to justify it. Like,
it's extremely,
justify
yeah,
that at all. So it's not at all a nominal thing. It's a very significant issue, and it's a very big problem with Islam's moral claim to superiority, right? And
really.
interesting. There's an interesting. Did you ever? So okay, we'll finish your story. We'll talk about the Ahmadi thing after. So this is crazy though. You're in a Muslim country. You're in the center of Islam, like
Yeah,
Muslim world. You're at the like basically near the Kaaba. This was Mecca, I guess, or
I
Medina.
was in Medina.
Medina, where the Prophet lived his whole life.
He was like his house was a couple of paces away. Like I
Yeah.
was sitting not far from Riyaz al Jannah.
Yeah. And here is where you had doubts for the first time. Wow.
Yes. So,
Wait,
anyways, yeah. So a taught Muhammad in my head versus researched Muhammad. That clash was just becoming more and more and more. So, anyways, after the Hajj, I had to go back to Pakistan. In Pakistan, I couldn't do anything about these things because, yes, I was having doubts. My behavior towards Islam was changing. I was becoming more liberal because I had thought that if I have questions about Muhammad's perfection, I don't have to take everything from it literally. So I'd be okay with some of my friends who were gay,
mhm.
which I wasn't before that. My friends who were Shia, my best friend was Shia growing up. I used to call him kafir every day. I stopped doing that. So, anyways, my behavior towards life and Islam had changed overall. Um,
Did you used to call your friend Kafir, he didn't mind, or you were still friends?
he used to call me kafir as well. No, he used to call me mukassar and send lanat on me because sending lanat in Shiaism is quite. It was just a friendly thing to do.
Okay, you guys were taking the piss, basically.
Yeah, yeah, we just did that. It was part of our friendship.
Yeah.
So, anyways, after a year or so in Pakistan, after my 18th birthday, I moved to London, and I got the biggest exposure of cultural exposure of my life because before that
Shocking.
everything was Islamic. There is only one way of life, that's Islam. You have to be Muslim to be a good person and everything. And meeting people here who would never been Muslim, who've never thought about Islam in their life, but still finding them to be good human beings. Uh, that was quite big. It was quite big for me personally having that exposure, and then with the research that I had stopped in Pakistan because I went back to the same lifestyle of being a Muslim, of not having any question. If I was having any questions, just press them as hard as I can and just be okay. Every time you're praying, you're just reminding yourself it's shaitan, it's Satan that's asking you to think that way. You don't have to express it, and just be in that set environment of being a Muslim. After coming here, I resumed that research into Muhammad again. I read The Sealed Nectar for the second time. The first time I had glossed over
Mhm.
almost everything in there, but the second time when I was reading from as objective as I could be at the time, I was still Muslim.
So that's the Seal Nectar, in case you guys are wondering. The Hikal Maktoum is the Sirah of the Prophet written by an Indian scholar. It won the prize for the best Sirah.
Yeah,
It won like 100, I forget what prize it was, $100,000 prize or something that Saudi
I think
gave.
it was 75,000 Saudi Riyal in the 70s or something.
Oh yeah, so it was a competition they had that was for the best seerah that could be written, and they gave it. So Saudi, I don't know who in Saudi did this, the government or what, but anyways, it was a Saudi prize for the best seerah, and I've also read this. So you read it for the second time.
I read it for the second time, and it, all of that I had like looked over for the first time was becoming issues. Or right from the beginning, when he's a child and his heart, his chest is being opened and heart is being purified by the angels and put back and closing. Uh, yeah, miracle, fine. You're a Muslim, you can look over it. But then again, every single thing to do with women had come up. Uh, about Aisha, 6-year-old child, making less and less sense every time I'm thinking about it actually. Uh, and women's rights to testimony, half inheritance, half. And I used to think about it on a personal level because I was a big fan of my sisters. My sisters were extremely intelligent women, and just because I was a man, I'm somehow given priority over them, and they were better children to my parents than I was. Uh, So it all, especially around women, and then coming here, made my first LGBT friend, and thinking, why is there something within me that's condemning them to hell? Why am I thinking that this person is going to hell just because they they are living the way they are living,
Mhm.
and they're not hurting anyone? uh, uh, Women, LGBT, all these social issues within Islam, there were more. I mean, I can't really think of any more right now. Uh, Anyways, I started thinking about, okay, Islam is not perfect. I don't have to. Islam is not a condition on you to be a good human being. Islam, in fact, I was finding quite the opposite, where I was being judgmental of almost everybody. I mean, I'm on the tube, London Underground, and I see women in shorter clothes, and all I'm thinking is, these people are immoral. I've got nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Why am I being so intrusive within me? Like,
Yeah.
why everybody coming in front of me? Why am I thinking of them according to my own set standards?
Yeah.
Um, Anyways, yeah. So I question in Islam to an extent where I don't know if I had left here or no, but it had a really bad effect on my mental health,
Oh.
where uh, I'm trying to leave Islam, but there is something within me that's not letting me leave. There is something within me that's cursing me constantly, constantly, that you're being a traitor to yourself, you're being a traitor to your family, you're being a traitor to your community. They've raised you well, they've fed you, they've done everything for you that you can imagine. And that's what you're going to do to them if you leave Islam. Because, yeah, it was quite bad. Went into really bad depression, was self-harming for a while. But I think it took me about a year and a half to 2 years to admit it to myself that I don't believe in Islam. I had to go through that struggle, because I wasn't looking for anybody outside of me to make me feel comfortable in that thinking, to make me feel comfortable with my apostasy, so to say, even though I hadn't admitted to myself. Went through that struggle after a couple of years, admitted it to myself that I have left Islam. Islam doesn't make any sense to me. I don't believe in Islam anymore.
Mhm.
Was did provide me some sort of solace for a while, but
What did?
like admitted it to myself that I don't believe in Islam anymore, provided me some comfort for a while. But after a while, then the question of existence came in. I went into existential crisis, and admitting to myself that I'm not a Muslim also brought identity crisis, because I was in a country where I didn't speak the language very well. I didn't had many friends because I'd been through a couple of years of depression back. Didn't had anybody to confide in about the way I was feeling. So existential crisis and identity crisis mixed up, but just pushed me into an isolation,
Mm.
where I just stopped going out completely. So
How
again,
many, so just to understand a little bit more, you were in UK for how long when this happened?
I was in UK for I think a year and a half.
Oh, so you were really like you just settled here, and like you said, you were because I was trying to understand because you speak perfect English, so I guess this was a long time ago now.
Yeah, it was around 2012.
Okay. So yeah, so that just I mean, that's an interesting point, and because a lot of times when people come from, let's say they come from Pakistan, like the first thing that happens when they come to a new country is they find other people like themselves and they go to the mosque, or it becomes like a little Pakistan from back home over here. But in your case, because you were having this religious crisis, it became tougher because everything around you from your childhood, your parents, upbringing, all told you Islam is true, Islam is true. And now, and let me guess, you didn't know anyone else that was doubting? Probably?
No,
No.
not at all. Not at all. For 4 years, I didn't. For first 2 years of then admitting it to myself, and then going through that crisis of identity. And I used to genuinely think that I am the cursed one. Uh, And there was that's why, like, people call me names on Twitter all the time, but it has zero effect on me because they can never say anything worse than that I've called myself.
Yeah.
Because I've been through that where I was constantly every night I'm in my bed, I'm just staring at ceiling and just cursing myself for
Yeah.
being the way I was back
Me
then,
leaving Islam or for
for
having.
leaving Islam, for leaving Islam. If I wasn't Muslim, I wasn't Pakistani. I knew my family is going to disown me someday. So there was all of that. Like, is there any way that I can actually reconcile with Islam? But it wasn't making any sense. And I didn't speak much English back then either in 2013. I started watching a lot of TV. Comedy became like the thing. I was watching comedy all day long, I mean, because there was nothing good going on in my life. I wanted to laugh, and
Yeah.
comedy was the only thing that I found some laughter in. And most of the comedians here in Britain are atheists. So it's fine. I've left Islam. It wasn't at that time. I still hadn't questioned the existence of God, because God is just a given thing for you when you grow up in a country like Pakistan. Yeah, and then they'd make jokes about religion, call Mary all sort of names, and rip Christianity apart. Uh, yeah, so watching them, taking that in, that religion isn't that sacred that you can't even joke about it. It's not that sacred that you can't live without it. Anyways, one day I was watching this extremely famous show in Britain hosted by Stephen Fry at the time.
Mhm.
Uh, and I was watching that on YouTube, and there was in the recommended video, there was a certain person called Christopher Hitchens. And clicking on that first video by Hitchens was the first time, like, that's where my journey of questioning God started, from Hitchens to Dawkins and everything. And then I started uh, reading about the evolution of God, how God had been part of human history, how it came about, how it's been used by forces to control the populace or control their citizens. Yeah. After consuming some of this atheistic content, I came to conclusion that God doesn't exist either. And the first time I saw an ex-Muslim, who that was the day. That was the day I felt somewhat normal. I saw Mariam Namazi on BBC,
Uh,
uh, and she just came up. She was introduced as the spokesperson for Council of Ex-Muslims of Britain, ex-Muslim term that I'd never heard before. And then she started talking about Islam. I think the topic was this: is it time for all religions to accept LGBT community, or whatever it was? And then she ripped Islam apart. She was quite critical of Islam, and uh, even though I didn't believe in Islam, I got somewhat offended just
yeah.
listening to somebody talk about Islam that way. At the same time, it provided me some comfort, because I thought, okay, there are other people out there. There must be a community, because there is a thing called Council of Ex-Muslims of Britain. Look them up.
Because it's so funny how like the religion has so much control over you that even after you leave Islam, you're still getting. And I know other people like that. I know other people that are not Muslim, but they get offended on sorry, former Muslim, and they get offended on behalf of Islam.
Yeah,
You're not even Muslim.
that's uh, yeah. Anyways, I searched them up. I searched Council of Ex-Muslim of Britain up.
Yeah.
Uh, Still didn't have enough courage to actually go out and meet them or meet anybody who'd left Islam, because I had no idea how I'd be received. I was talking to some people online on their forum. Took me about, I think, a year more to actually go out and meet my first ex-Muslim. And I remember it was my heart rate was high. I was sweating. My throat dried up, and I was just outside the meeting point, and I had to stand there, talk to myself a bit, and then open the door. And I went in. The first person greeted me with "Assalamu alaikum."
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the rest is history.
Was it a joke or was it serious? I thought you were.
as a joke.
Okay.
I mean, it was his way of making a newbie like feel comfortable because he might have seen how nervous and uh, how like anxious I was
Yeah.
because it was quite scary. I didn't know if I'd be received well or if I can talk about being an apostate, even though I knew it's Council of Ex-Muslim of Britain.
It just shows you how important the whole ex-Muslim label is, that you you don't even know that. I mean, now things are changing so much. I think precisely because of the activism work that many people have put in, the hard work, Sarah Haider, Miriam Namazi, and Hassan Radwan, and Mohammed Sayed, all of these people that founded these organizations that are doing advocacy work, and this type of like awareness, raising awareness about created Wiki Islam. Wiki Islam helped me as well, which was an ex-Muslims in North America project. I think all of this stuff is so important, just not because we necessarily want people to leave Islam, but we want people to be educated. I mean, I do want people to leave Islam, but at the end of the day, it's their choice.
It is their
And
choice.
they don't want to leave Islam. I'm fine with that. But at the end of the day, everybody needs to at least have the information available to them. You were saying that in Pakistan, they don't they don't teach about certain things, which again I'm like shocked, because I guess I'm coming from a very different perspective, having consumed a lot of American speakers convert content like Hamza
Yeah,
Yusuf and Yasser Qadi, and of course over here they don't hide away from that because there's a lot of polemics against Islam.
yeah,
So they do cover it, and then they they make it look nice, and they give excuse, like Hamza Yusuf talked about the Aisha thing, even class. I can't remember exactly what he said now, but he said he doesn't have an issue with it because, and he justified it. But I guess over there, because the narrative is more strongly contained, they just don't even have to mention. They can just say Muhammad is the best guy ever. He was
completely.
to women, he was this, he was that. Nobody even questions it because there's no counter narrative. The counter narrative is squashed, right? Is quashed, I mean, by the government. I don't like, for whatever reason they don't they don't allow blasphemy, right? And it's unfortunate, but I mean, that's the situation. So we do need the ex-Muslim label. It's identity politics, and I'm not a fan of identity politics, but I think we do need identity politics in this example. I think we need to do it a little bit, at least until it becomes a little bit easier to leave Islam. It becomes a thing. Everybody knows that there's apostates everywhere. In the community, nobody cares anymore. The fact that people are upset about apostasy means there's still a problem. It shouldn't be. I mean, we have a long way to go, of course, but stories like yours, every single person that comes out that speaks about this from the heart, that uses the real identity, is so valuable, because there's for every one of you, there's 100 other people that are scared to come out.
Yeah,
And hearing your story and hearing my story and hearing everybody's, it just helps, because it makes it that much easier for you. You know that, okay, this is a template, this is possibly what'll happen. And we didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about your family yet.
yeah.
So what happened? So you became friends with ex-Muslims at this point, and things got better at this point, or was things still tough for you?
Things started getting better with every time. I still had to work a lot on myself because I'd lost my confidence completely. I was getting anxiety attacks regularly when I was going to meet anybody new because I'd been in isolation for a couple of years before that. I wasn't making any friends. I wasn't talking to anybody. It was just me, myself, and TV. So I still had to go into therapy and work on myself, gain some of my confidence back, get rid of the anxiety somehow. Did a lot of exercises around that. It just made me feel normal in a sense that there are other people. I'm not alone in that.
Can you
And
share some of those exercises? I mean, you don't have to go into too much detail, but for anyone else, I mean, going for therapy is an amazing idea. How do you find a therapist? I mean, it's different in every country, but in UK, like, do you just Google it, or did you talk to someone else that knew someone? What's the process of?
we have universal healthcare. So we can get one through NHS. NHS is a gift that keeps on giving,
Oh,
and and now, especially now, you have so many opportunities. Now we have our own therapist, ex-Muslim, like Jimmy Bengesh does a lot of work through Free Hearts, Free Minds. Look them up. Therapy helps. It helps so much because there were, if anything, if your thoughts are all tangled up in your head, you don't know a way forward. They'll just organize it for you and give you, okay, that's it, that's what you need to do, and the rest is up to you. The exercises around anxiety, it was the simplest of things, like washing your hand with cold water and letting the cold water dry off your hands just before you going into a social situation, because social situations weren't something that I was ever feeling confident in. Or taking your time with when you're talking, uh, not thinking about others in the situation, or not letting your brain derail from your thought. So there are a lot of things around anxiety that you can do, especially when you get into the situation, because that's when it amplifies. It's unfortunate, but that's how your body reacts to it. There are loads, you can look them up. And Jimmy Bengesh, Free House, Free Minds. If you're an ex-Muslim woman, I think Zara K's Faithless Hijabi is doing a program for ex-Muslim women to go through some mental health help. It is something that we need. It's unfortunate because leaving Islam comes with so many of social and personal troubles that you kind of need somebody to talk to. Um, yeah, therapy is highly recommended. It's helped me personally a lot in just being okay with myself, because I wasn't okay with myself for a long time. And when you're not okay with yourself, you're not creating any relationships that's good for you, because you're not happy. You're not going to make any other person with you happy, and that just brings in more. It's a spiral that keeps on going downwards. You need to break out of it, and like, seeking professional help for it, it's extremely important.
How about was meditation part of that at all?
Meditation didn't work for me for a long while, because I did went through my anger stage as well. uh, I was angry at myself, as I said, but I was angry after I'd been, I had started being okay with myself. The second stage came when I was angry with everybody in my community back in Pakistan, because I felt like I've been lied to my whole life. I've been I've been robbed of many years of my life, especially these 5 years of, because I was that my life was defined in a box so much that any thought behind that box just made me feel like I was being a traitor, whereas I was just thinking. So that anger came on outside community, on family, on culture, on everything, on the country itself. Had to work through that as well. So there are a lot of components that you have to actually go through to
Yeah, and
be with those.
to mention that, I think it's a well-deserved anger because a lot of people go through this when they leave Islam. They're very angry, and I'm sure it's not just leaving Islam, leaving Christianity, whatever. Like when you go through a major change like this, and especially when one that you've vested so much into, you've invested and you've vested like a lot of life decisions around that. I mean, it's okay to feel angry. It's part of the growing process. It's a little bit dangerous because, in a sense, because some of the things that people say during this anger phase can be counterproductive to like relationships. It can be counterproductive to even the activism. But again, at the end of the day, you know, I I I- I'm one of those that has been sort of responsible for, kind of, I don't want to say condemning people, but like, not understanding maybe people for the anger phase. And part of the maturing process is to realize that people do have an anger phase for a reason. And if they're gonna go and bash Islam online, I mean, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that because that's part of the coping mechanism. That's a way of getting back at something they felt that they were cheated out of. And there's nothing, again, it's not everyone is doing activism for the same reason. Some people are doing it because they want to help people leave Islam. Some people are just doing it because they want to feel better and they just want to let it out and they just want to, like, they want to blog or tweet or make videos. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, yes, some of it will not be effective, but it won't be effective for maybe what I want, but maybe for them it is effective, right? And it's okay to like let that out. And a lot of people, they'll like, I've noticed there's people that join, I used to be a big, I mean, I'm still in the group called Agnostic Muslims and Friends on Facebook. It's not that active anymore. But a lot of people join the group and, they have the thing they need to get out, and then they're okay. And they just don't care anymore. And they just get on with their life, right? And now Muslims often say to us, why don't you get on with your they want everyone else to just stop talking about this because they haven't got on with their life, because their life is talking about Islam. Like, if you look at TikTok, a new platform, it's
Yeah,
already inundated with like Muslim, like, like people talking about Islam and promoting Islam and dawah and all this stuff. So that's like part and parcel of their lives. So why can't it be part and parcel of our lives if we want it to be? Of
completely.
course, unfortunately, it's never going to be a level playing field, because in their case, talking about Islam is perfectly culturally acceptable, and there's
Yeah.
no risk to them, there's no harm to them, there's no loss to them. They're not going to get fired from their jobs unless they go crazy and
In
like
fact, there's praise and acknowledgement for them for doing
I,
it.
I don't even know if they said like apostates should be killed, whether that would affect their job or not. I don't even know if they can be fired for saying that as part of the religious doctrine. Not saying you should go and kill an apostate, but in my religion, this is what we were taught. Like, this is what we would do. So, the system is actually, I don't want to say rigged, but it's not balanced, right? So there's always going to be people like you that go and speak about this. There's going to be always a heavier price to pay. Like you're paying a price, whereas they, on the other hand, like Muslims, they get praised by the fellow Muslims. They get like big platforms, and there's a lot of Muslims, right? So like there's a lot less ex-Muslims and apostates, and so we tend to have a crowd that includes like a lot of Christians, for example, some Hindus as well,
Yes,
people that don't like Islam. And there's nothing wrong with not liking Islam. If someone loves Islam, then it's okay for someone else to hate Islam. It's not
completely.
one way. It's not only the case that all of us have to love Islam or be neutral. No, we can hate it as well. Why can't we hate Islam? I mean, if you hate atheism or any other system, communism, why can't we hate Islam? There's nothing wrong with hating Islam. It's just a belief system, right? It doesn't mean you hate Muslims. You shouldn't hate everyone just for being part of a group, especially a group as big as over a billion people. I mean, there's going to be a lot of differences in that group. It's going to be very difficult to kind of assume, things about them. There's certain general things you can assume, but you cannot be a bigot. You cannot treat people badly just based on group membership, right? So um basically, yeah, I just feel like there's always going to be a cost to doing this, and the cost is going to be it's going to be there, but some of us, we're going to keep doing it because it's important to us. And this is why.
It is. I mean, I think it's important for a simple reason. It took me 5 years to find first ex-Muslim, and then take 2 more years to be okay with myself after working. I spent 7 years of my life in that limbo of being hating myself, not being okay with myself, hating my community, being angry, being constantly anxious, isolation, depression, everything that you can think of. And my first step towards feeling normal was the first time I came across an ex-Muslim. And for me, I use the word ex-Muslim with pride, because it highlights the journey I've been through. It tells people that I've made a decision based on my own thinking. It's not something that's been taught to me. And others should feel pride in that, because Islam is a religion that provides foundation for your life. Islam takes pride in saying that it's a complete code of conduct, and it provides you complete code for your life, right? And getting rid of that foundation or letting go of that foundation, you have to build your life from start again, given what kind of Muslim you are.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing. That is a big thing. It's quite scary. Some people take longer than others, but again, the first thing that can make you feel better is knowing there are others who've been through same. And that's where the label ex-Muslim comes in. That's why it's important to use. I know there's been some controversy. There's bound to be.
There's
It's
always
fine. Sorry.
always gonna be.
There's always going to be, but the importance of the label ex-Muslim cannot be undermined, because it's highlighting an existence that is still condemned to death in many parts of the world. It's not like it's been accepted. Once it's been accepted that leaving Islam is okay, you get on with your life, it's fine. We don't have to use it. In fact, we're using it to get to a day that where we don't have to use it. It's not part of it. It's not our whole identity. It's just a part of it.
I definitely, I want to expand Muslim label to include ex-Muslims, because I think if someone doesn't have to, like, I read a comment by someone that was a Chinese Muslim, and I guess he was an Uyghur Muslim, and he said, I don't even know, like, this was a comment on EXMNA's page, and he said, I don't know why you guys have to use this label. Like, he's like, Muslim here, we drink, whatever. We still say Muslim. Like, we don't care. But over here, it's different. It's not like that. I mean, I guess in that place, in that locality, it's at the point where it's accommodating enough so that lapsed Muslims or former Muslims, they're still Muslim. But it's not like that over here. Over, like, in the UK, in Canada, actually most of the world,
Most of them.
you
Like,
are not either Muslim or you're not Muslim. There's no such thing as like Muslim but not Muslim. There's no agnostic Muslim. I mean, Hassan Radwan was pushing for this label,
yeah,
agnostic Muslim, but every single time you use this label, everyone's always asking, what's agnostic Muslim? What's agnostic Muslim? Like, they don't understand that you could be Muslim as an identity marker and agnostic as a belief, like, indicator. That's not even possible in people's minds, because they just think either you're Muslim or you're not. Whereas agnostic Jew, I mean, that's pretty common nowadays. I mean,
really common. Yeah, but that's what happens with an all-encompassing ideology, right?
yeah,
Because absolutism, uh, and all-encompassing. The moment you're saying that you're not adhering to this all-encompassing part of Islam, say you're not a Muslim, there are conditions. There are literally conditions of being a Muslim, right? There are 6 conditions that you have today to be a Muslim, and we live in a world where we can afford to expand that definition, but there is a backlash. There is going to be some sort of backlash. Uh, it's the matter of how we deal with that backlash, really.
yeah, and that's the key point, is the backlash is very, very severe. Like, it needs to be toned down a notch. I mean, it's okay to be upset with someone, but it's not okay to harm them physically, financially, or emotionally, because you don't agree with the belief or lack of his belief, or lack of the belief, right? So, this problem is much worse with ex-Muslim women than men. Uh, Front of it, and they get actually, usually have a much worse situation than an ex-Muslim man would have. But it's tough in both cases. It's tough for people that are still living with their family. It's tough for people. It's a little bit easier if you're on your own, because at least then you don't have to deal with the backlash. So, what happened with your family? Do you want to talk about that? Like,
Yeah, of course, of course. I think everything needs to be talked about. I'm okay with the fact I've made my peace with it. It took me a while. I made sure that I only talk about it once I'm okay with the fact I no longer hold any residue of contempt or anger towards them, because that would somehow like corrupt
yeah,
the narrative. So I started this Urdu channel last year with a friend of mine, which started getting a bit of traction. We got to 8,000 followers in no time, because Haris Sultan has. Sorry,
what's it called?
the channel's no longer active now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we were getting a lot of traction, because like right when we started, the second day Haris Sultan invited us to promote the channel. And I think it got to 8,000 subscribers within 2 or 3 months. And one day I was sitting and realized that I haven't told my family yet. And I'm talking about this in Urdu to a Pakistani audience. It's better if I tell them myself, so I can at least control the narrative, because
Yeah.
they've had an idea, because one of my ex-girlfriend had actually outed me
Oh,
to them. and I had to lie back then. It was too. I think it was in 2017 somewhere.
Oh, she
Yeah, I was. Yeah, we went through a breakup, and she called my sister up and told her,
cried.
uh, "Your brother's no longer a Muslim." Then I had to lie back then, but now I had been delaying the inevitable because I was fearing the worst. Knowing my family, every family is different, but I knew how my family would react. Um, February this year, I decided I need to tell them now because it's been long enough. I was feeling quite confident about my atheism and everything in my life at the time, actually. Uh, Told them it was same old. It was still quite a shock because I was telling them myself now. Uh, Mum went through all the emotional thing there. She'd been dad was quite angry, brothers and sisters, everybody was quite angry at the time. And I thought, okay, this is gonna, I should allow them some time because they've had this picture of me in their head, and now I'm actually telling them, no, I'm completely opposite. So I decided to give them some time. Anyways, they within I think a month or so of us trying to negotiate, they found the channel through one of my extended uncles and talked me talking about Muhammad. I think it was Hari Sultan's video where I said, I think somebody had asked in the question, was Muhammad a good prophet? And I answered by saying he wasn't even a good human. And that one sentence sat in my mother's head that I called Muhammad a bad human. Uh, yeah, anyways, they said, okay, the first condition, if you even want to talk about this stuff, like having a relationship, trying to continue a relationship, you have to stop doing the videos first of all. I said, okay, I'll put it on hold. I'm not saying that I'm gonna stop doing it. I'm gonna put it on hold. Let's keep on talking because I want them in my life. I wanted them in my life, right? But in retrospect, that was a mistake because they thought if I've given in with that one thing, I'm gonna start giving in. Right? From then on, every phone call just became about me and how they can bring me back to Islam. They started bringing in some ulama home to talk to me over the phone. We had like a couple or 2 hours session with the ulamas, just talking about Islam. They're just talking about I think the stuff uh, from Pakistani narrative, completely unscientific, and I had to educate them a bit. Ulamas go angry. He's gone out of hand. Didn't work. Anyways, it came to emotional blackmail after a while, where my mom was crying out on every phone call, was making me feel unhappy about everything as well. Um, After about 4 or 5 months of back and forth, trying to reconcile a relationship, trying to look over all the emotional blackmailing darts they have thrown my way, uh, and just analyzing the way they were making me feel after every phone call because I talked to them, and for next 3 days I'd be unhappy, and it started affecting my relationship, it started affecting my friendships, it started affecting myself, and again, I chose to go into therapy and talk about it. And after a couple of sessions, I realized it's time to actually make a decision. I know I'm not going to go back to Islam. And that's something they're not trying to budge on. And every phone call is actually making me unhappy,
Yeah.
literally making me unhappy. And I had to make a decision. And we had to say bye to each other for good. And this happened about, I think, a couple of months ago.
Oh, wow. So it's very, very fresh still.
It's still quite raw, yeah. But I mean, I the good thing is I told them when I was okay with myself. Secondly, I'd realized the moment it started affecting my mental health in a negative way again, started making me unhappy and affecting the relationships I care about.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I had to make the decision.
You know what? This is a very good thing that you did because it's something that I think many, many people, including myself, struggle with, which is boundaries, creating healthy boundaries for yourself. I'm glad you have someone on your side to guide you and advise you and help you through these things, a therapist in this case. And it makes perfect sense. I mean, I can think of another example. I know of an individual that was in a similar situation where, in this case, it was his mom, but it wasn't about Islam. It was something else. And every time he would talk to her, it would reinforce this bad mental programming that he was raised with, and it would
Yes.
relationship with other women, and to the point where he wasn't able to keep a relationship because of his mother and her sort of way that she was been programming him his whole life, right? And without going into details,
Yeah.
what helped him was he had to do the same thing you did. He had to tell his mom, I can't talk to you anymore. You are not good for my mental health. You're not good for my relationships. You are pulling me down, and I need to get a life, right? I mean, now this man is happily married. He has a daughter, and things are going well for him. But it took him he had to like set some boundaries. Hey, this is, and I do hope that eventually things will change, and if they mature. I mean, obviously you are the mature one here, and you're the one that's maintaining the relationship. You have the open arms, and you're like, yeah, I'm willing to have a relationship with you guys. They're the ones that are basically trying to make you submit to their sort of desires. And is that like a Daisy thing too? The parents, over, like, they try to like tell you everything. You know what I mean? Like,
The whole our parental children relationship structure in this households is so unhealthy.
yeah,
So I had to literally ask my parents that I'm not a child anymore. Don't talk to me as if I'm a child. Let's have an adult to adult conversation. Why can't we do that? Say, no matter how old you get, you are still my son. You're always my child. Say, mom, that's not healthy.
yeah,
Talk to me as if I'm an adult. Let's have a conversation. But they don't grasp that. They
yeah,
don't, unless you get married. I think you're still a child to them. That's, and there is no communication structure either. It's so hard. I remember, like, my mom knew that I was living with my girlfriend at the time, and she tried to have the talk with me. It was the single most embarrassing moment of my life, because mom is trying to have the talk, and all she said was, "Oh, beta, we're Muslims. We have some boundaries. I hope you understand." Okay.
these talk,
Sorry.
the birds and the bee, like talking about sex, you mean?
Yes. No,
Yeah.
all she said was, we're Muslims and we have some boundaries that we can't cross.
Good, right? Yeah. They don't know how to address that.
There is no communication structure. You cannot be frank with your parents, not at least with my parents. Okay, with my mom, okay, sometimes I can be frank. My mom knew about
Yeah.
my girlfriends, all the ones I had.
Yeah.
But then with my father, I was so scared of my father all my life that we unless there is cricket or politics, we had nothing to talk about,
Mhm.
nothing personal, because there is no communication structure.
I just want to read this comment. Noor said, take care of yourself, man. Keep going. If there's any God, he will be proud of you. Islam makes you less human. I mean, it's true that if that's one thing I say as well, that if there was a God, I mean, you're doing everything that you should be doing. You're following what you believe is true. You're standing up for yourself. You're creating healthy boundaries between you and your family. And if they don't wish to respect your boundaries, um, I know another ex-Muslim, Pakistani ex-Muslim. I don't think I can say the name, but his relationship is good with his parents now. After,
Nice.
I don't know how many, 5, 7, 10 years. I don't know how many years it's been. So things can change, like, if you look at it like this, it's like stages of grief. It's like they lost you. So from their perspective, there's going to be anger, the whole stages, and then I forget what it is. Eventually, it gets to acceptance,
Eventually, yes.
crying and anger and all of these different things that they go through. And eventually, usually, if they're mature enough, they'll get to the point of acceptance where they'll realize that, okay, they can't change you. You're gonna be where you're gonna be. But I think the cultural thing gets in the way too, because me being raised in Canada, I always told myself that if my kids left Islam, isn't that funny? If my kids left Islam, I was saying I would be their friend. I'd be their friend. I'd be the ally. I'd be there for them because that's what my dad modeled to me. And so I mean, we're Desi too, but we lived in Kenya, and
Oh,
my grandparents are born in Kenya. My great grandparents migrated from India before Pakistan even existed. So if you think about it, that actually changed my family, and we're more Western in a sense. My parents had a love marriage, not an arranged marriage. Kenya is very multicultural. It's not like India or Pakistan. So it's very different in my family. So I was raised very differently. And like I said, my parents they dated and whatever, right? Even then that was taboo, but still they got away with it, right? I mean, dating was, and again, my dad is a smiley. That's completely unacceptable. But to
in
a
Ismail, is dating is unacceptable.
No, no. Well, Ismailis are not supposed to date either. They're supposed to get married before having sex as well. But what I meant was not from my dad's side. From my mom's side, Sunni dating an Ismaili, a Sunni woman, an Ismaili man is not allowed.
It's not allowed. No, no way.
Her parents accepted it at some point. I think after I was born. Once I was born, they accepted it. They became friendly after that. But um, so what I'm trying to say, I'm ranting a bit. Sorry. What I'm trying to say is that um I think the cultural values get in the way. I think Desi parents, they 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 don't have proper boundaries. They don't understand that you're an adult and you will do what you're gonna do. And the only thing they can do, and this is something I've had to come to terms with as a parent myself, you can't, like, there's only so much you can do for your kids. At some point, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. And, I feel a little bit reassured knowing that, like, I was listening to an episode of Sam Harris talking about the genetic. I forget who he's interviewing now, but they've done studies that show that when you have two children that are twins and they're like separated,
Yeah.
right? So one is with, let's say, with the blood father, and by mistake, one of them ended up with the wrong family or something, or I don't know if mistake or not, but anyways, for whatever reason, the two kids end up being more alike to each other than to the parents that raised them. Yeah, like in terms of it's shocking to what extent, even to the extent of like getting fat. Like obesity is like there's a big genetic component, like 60% or something comes from your genes. So like whatever programming your children have, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. And
Yeah.
you can't do anything about it. You can try your very best, but they're just gonna, like, in your case, you ended up as an atheist because you are an intelligent person, you're a skeptical person, and you have morals, you have values, and those values led you out of Islam. And there's nothing they can do about it. And the same thing with me. Like I cannot control if my kids will end up, going down a bad path. There is nothing I can do about it. I cannot control that. I cannot stop that. The only thing I can do is be there for them
Yeah.
and help them to come back to the right path. Like if they got involved with drugs or something, or they got involved in like a gang, no way for me to stop them. I just have to guide them back. So I hope, unfortunately, again, I think the cultural values are so different with
Yeah.
Desi parents. They feel like they own the kids, like like you're the property or something, and they want to control you. But it's just not like that. And growing up in a multicultural society, I think helps a lot because you get to see that not everybody's the same, and you know, uh, and of course, I think as time has gone by, society has become m- like our values towards kids have increased, meaning that we care more about kids' rights.
True.
um you cannot beat your kids anymore, stuff like
Or
that.
even affording them a childhood
Yeah.
is still a new notion. Like 100 years ago, children were chimney sweepers here in Britain. Now, uh, you afford them a childhood; it's their basic right.
Yeah.
Like growing up years, we didn't. There is things that change it. And about my parents, like I understand what they may be going through. I understand how they behave and what they think, and I tried my best to give them every benefit of the doubt, every single one. But it got to a point where, I mean, before I say that, I'm not bad mouthing. I still love them. I've got not an ounce of malice in my heart towards them. But it got to a point where, just to save their face in community, they started lying to me just so I feel bad about myself, about my atheism. That was the moment. And when I realized, when I found out some of those things that they have told me just to make me feel bad about myself were complete lies, that was a breaking point. I
Mm,
was just like, okay, maybe it is time to actually say this relationship a goodbye, because I don't see a point of return from there, where
yeah,
your own parents are trying to make you feel bad about yourself just so you submit. And they are lovely people. They've been the best parents they can be. I'm not saying that.
yeah,
There is a lot of cultural and communal pressure. Like,
yeah.
there is one sentence, "What will people say?" That's constantly in their head, and they have to get rid of it. And I don't see that happening anytime soon, especially in our parental generation.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. So, um, do you want to talk about Pakistan a bit and like the blasphemy there, and what you think about like what's going on over there and issues with, and as well, someone asked a question about Christians. Can you tell us about development of Christians in Pakistan? We hear there's more growing persecutions. I guess Christians, Ahmadis, anyone that's not Sunni Muslim, Shias even probably persecuted, right?
Shia persecution has just started. We actually, we can see it. It started in last 3 months, and it's already skyrocketing, because we live in a world that any change or any development is quite rapid, because it took a while. Let's go through Pakistan's history with blasphemy. So Pakistan is, of course, created in the name of Islam, world's first state that was created for religious purpose, for religion. Um, Two nations theory, 14 points, charter, everything pointed that Muslims need a separate state. Well, okay, Pakistan is formed, is carved out of the United India in 1947. Now the biggest challenge is to create an identity, a shared identity for everybody, because there are different ethnicities within Pakistan. Punjabis are Indians, Baloch are Aryans, Afghan, Pashtun are Afghans, Sindhis are Rajasthani. There is these different ethnicities. We need something to bind them with. Uh, just a national identity, they needed to find a base for that, and the base was Islam. That base was founded. So to be a Pakistan to begin with, being a Muslim was a plus point for you, because what's the meaning of Pakistan? La ilaha illallah. That's the motto Pakistan was built on. So Pakistani identity was based, and then uh, because Pakistan was a new country, it was an enthusiastic country, and the foundation was Islam. The first uh, big idea for the world was a pan-Islamic identity. They tried to bring in all different Muslim countries to form a European-style coalition, which almost all other Muslim countries rejected, because they had their own ethno-national identities. They didn't need anything new. Uh, Anyways, Pakistan retained the blasphemy law, because Pakistan's penal code is written by the colonial powers. Pakistan retained that, but it was a vague law to begin with. It just said hurting any religious sentiment is against the law and shall be punished. Right? But Pakistan is going through, and Pakistan is still retaining some of the practices, non-Muslim practices, from before the partition. Like pubs and bars are allowed to operate, alcohol is being sold until 1977. So that's after 30 years after the creation of Pakistan. Bangladesh is separated in 1971. In 73, there is a new constitution that's been written after the first general election of new Pakistan. And Maududi, Maududi's teachings are incorporated within the constitution. And funnily enough, sorry?
Oh, wow. Like so basically Islamist sort of ideology.
Yeah, that's when Ahmadiyya were classed non-Muslim.
Oh,
That was 1973's constitution. Before that, Ahmadiyya weren't classed non-Muslim because the 73 constitution was written with Maududi in mind, essentially, because Maududi's teachings can be seen. There is uh, a Islamic identity written into it, what it means to be a Muslim, what the universe belongs to the God, or glory to God. Everything is written into that. Pakistan's name, it changed to an Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Uh, Anyways, after a couple of years, alcohol sale is prohibited. Um, and then the democratic government of this leftist Bhutto was overthrown by a dictator, Ziaul Haq. Ziaul Haq is the figure that's completely Islamicized Pakistan. He created Sharia benches within Supreme Court. So Supreme Court would give a decision, and then Sharia benches within Supreme Court that consists of ulama, not qualified judges, but qualified scholars who'd oversee a decision, and if they deem it to be against the rulings of Islam, they can ask the judge to change it without citing any penal code.
why did Ziaul Haq do all this? What do you
Uh, Saudi was pumping a lot of money.
Okay.
Saudi Arabia was pumping a lot of money. And at the same time, there was war going on in Afghanistan. And Pakistan was a key ally for America to fight against Afghanistan. There's a lot of money coming from there. There's a lot of money coming from Saudi. Like this, the biggest mosque in Asia was being built and named after the Saudi king at the time, Faisal Mosque in Islamabad, because he was giving him the money. And when Iranians attack Makkah, Pakistani army is deployed by Ziaul Haq. So Ziaul Haq had established relations with Saudis, really strong relations. So Saudis is pumping in money in Pakistan, and Pakistan's constitution, because it's a dictator, is being changed at will. If we just talk about, there is a lot, Sharia benches, Sharia courts, zakat, 2.5% tax being levied on every bank account, interest changed to profit loss statements. That's all happened within 6 years, like 1980 to 86.
Wow, that's a lot of stuff. So this has actually been bad for the country, though, like as
Oh,
a whole.
extremely. We can compare, actually. So let's talk about blasphemy law. Blasphemy law was general, vague, includes all the religion. But in 1986, blasphemy law is Islamicized. The word Muhammad and Quran are added in, and it takes 4 more years, and then word Islam are added in 1990,
Added
right?
to the Constitution.
Into the penal code, the blasphemy law. So
Oh,
295, 297, and 298 ABC. These
if
nine. Sorry.
it's specific to Islam.
Yes, essentially Islamicized them.
Oh, okay.
So what happened now? Let's see. Let's divide those two halves. 1947 to 1986. That's 39 years. 1986 to 2020. That's 34 years. Right? From 47 to 86, there is one registered case of blasphemy without any sentence and no extrajudicial killing. From 1990 to 2020, there are more than 1,600 registered cases. More than 40 people are on death row, and more than 65 people have been killed just because they were accused of blasphemy. Some of them in police custody.
It feels like at this point, this can't. I'm just wondering how they can think this is. I mean, the only comparison that comes to mind is Hitler and like his sort of psychopathic desire to kill Jews did not help him in the war. It took away energy from fighting to killing people. they weren't even a threat. You know what I mean? Like it's just stupid. It like what you described to me, it sounds like the same psychopathic. Like we wanna persecute people that are not even. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't make any sense from
and and
how
it's come.
what meaning. I mean, putting more people in jail. Like, how is this helping anything? How is this helping the development of the country? What if you were like putting yourself in their shoes? Isn't is this only just for dogmatic reasons, meaning that we have to protect Islam, but it's not like a logical thing that there's going to be some sort of beneficial, like there's no benefit from
Nothing.
this.
It's just to protect Islam, and Pakistanis take pride of it. There was a time when I was taking pride in Pakistan's blasphemy law. I'd been part of the protests against blasphemy law because somebody had committed blasphemy in my city. I've been part of protests against Salman Rushdie through my college years because that's how the public behavior is shaped.
Damn.
Namut Risalat, protector of Prophet's sanctity.
Yeah.
It's top to bottom. Yes, the law was changed first, but then with every single time there's been a prosecution or a killing, the murderer or somebody being prosecuted is highlighted so much, and it's presented as an achievement that we've done to protect Islam. We'll come towards the Brailwi extremism as well, because Brailwi extremism happened in this decade.
Brelvi extremism, you said?
Brailwi, yes.
Yeah.
So Sunnis, there are two main Sunnis, Deobandis and Brailwis. Brailwis were more like Sufis. They were more concerned with like praising Muhammad and Allah and just dancing in their mosques and just being chilled, really. But now Brailwis are extremists. Like Brailwis are leading the charge against blasphemy in Pakistan now.
The green turban, the flag waving, Molid celebrating, those guys?
Yes, they are part of Brailwis. So
Okay.
there are loads of Brailwis.
So the funny thing is, I actually had a, I think he was Pakistani, Muslim challenging me on this and saying, "Oh, you don't know anything about this. You're not a proper you were never a Muslim or something." And I was like, "This concept of Deobandi and Brelvi, it doesn't exist outside of the subcontinent. Like you don't find Algerians being Deobandi,
No.
no Saudi Deobandi. There's no Moroccan Deobandi. It's only in the Pakistani, sorry, not Pakistani, in the subcontinent. Like it's a Desi thing mainly. It's not limited to Desi. It's not like they don't say non-Desis cannot be Brelvi or something. But that's where it came from. It came from the subcontinent, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
two cities. They're named after the cities. So
oh,
Deobandis, their first madrasa was established in the city of Deoband. Brailwi's first madrasa was established in the city of Braili. That's why they're called Deobandi and Brailwi. It's just a subcontinental thing.
oh yeah. So they were so now they're the ones that used to be the non-political ones, and now the ones were going and like asking for people to be punished for blasphemy.
Murdered, killed. They are leading the charge every day. Every new demonstration you see in Pakistan on Twitter, they are done by Brailways. It's all happened on the backs of one person, Mumtaz Qadri, who killed Salman Tasir.
Oh yes.
So Salman Tasir was governor of the province I'm from, Punjab. And it was back in 2008 when Asia Bibi was sentenced to death for the first time. And Salman Tasir came out and said, uh, let's change the punishment for blasphemy law from death to life imprisonment. He didn't say let's abolish blasphemy law. All he said was let's change it from death punishment to life in prison. And his own security guard kills him, and that security guard was Brailwi, Mumtaz Qadri, and his funeral was attended by thousands and thousands of people, showered with rose petals. And that's where the new Brailwi extremism started. Some opportunists like uh, Khadim Hussain Rizvi, who's now created a new political party as well, just highlighted that,
Oh,
made the guy a hero, and started bringing up, started breeding Brailwi extremists. Now, the murder happened, I think, a couple of months ago in Peshawar in the court of some, I think, some guy, some American citizen who had claimed to be the prophet, a prophet, was shot dead in Peshawar. That was done by a Brelvi guy. He was praised. The Paris attack was done by a Brelvi guy
Oh,
who
no.
made the video before going to attack, and claiming, praising his Brelvi beliefs and his Brelvi ulamas, and that green turban one, Ilyas Qadri, I think, praising him before going and doing the atrocities. That's happened within last 10 years.
Gee.
Historically quaint, tranquil sect now is committing all those atrocities because heroism.
Crazy.
Glory.
But there's a counter movement, right? I mean, there's a growing apostasy within Pakistan.
There is growing apostasy within Pakistan, but not out in the open. Because in Pakistan, you still cannot. I mean, somebody asked about Christians before, but
Yeah.
I'd put Pakistani Christians, Hindus, Ahmadis, and ex-Muslims and blasphemous dissenters all in the same category because they are all prosecuted
Yeah.
for being the way they are, for believing or not believing in something.
Yeah.
And it's quite systematic as well. Like people's behavior, just citizens' behavior towards them. I mean, nobody even cares. We see lynching. Right? There was this Christian couple, I think Christian couple who were accused of sending blasphemous texts over WhatsApp, and they were thrown into a brick furnace
Jeez.
and burnt alive, and none of the perpetrators were ever arrested.
Wow.
And people who were accused of sending blasphemous text were illiterate, and text in questions was sent in English.
Oh,
Nobody cared. It's just the accusation. If you're accused of it, that's enough. I mean, it happened 2 days ago
yeah.
in a university. That some student was accused of blasphemy, and there was riots in the university. Student had to be expelled, and now he's in jail.
Yeah, this is the I don't want to say this is the end game, but this is definite. I mean, if you look at the cost, when people say that religion, in particular Islam, is good for society, I mean, this is the either the side effect or the intended result of dogma. It doesn't optimize for human thriving. It optimizes for protecting itself. I don't I there's two common ideas of religion. Either it's a mind virus or it's a beneficial adaptation, right? So there's two ways to look at it.
Yeah.
I there's sort of truth to both sort of models, and of course there's flaws to both. I think that the reason that religion did survive is because, as Yuval Harari said in *Sapiens*, that this idea of a shared spirit, God, whatever, it united Homo sapiens, right? And that I get that. At the same time, some religious beliefs are like viruses, where they will destroy and spread themselves and harm others in the process of protecting themselves, right? Like if you have a really deadly parasite, the parasite will kill the host, right? Because in order to spread itself to others, it'll actually kill the corpse. Ebola is an example of that. Ebola kills, and then once you die, it spreads to someone else and spreads to someone else, and it doesn't go away. And that's what viruses are. And in some ways, Islam and does have these characteristics of martyrdom, jihad, blasphemy, and it is actually killing the competition, so to speak. If a skeptic comes up and challenges Islam, the virus, the mind virus, in this case, Islam will go and kill that person, even though the virus has no idea of, as a virus, it doesn't know that it's not like thinking or something. It's not planning it. It has those mechanisms built into it, right? And through selection, it spreads itself, right? So I think that's what we're seeing with Islam. We're seeing, and which is why we need to continue to fight these ideas, using Muslim label, using our best arguments, because I don't think there is another way to fight such an evil sort of system. The best thing we have are words, and people will eventually see if we show them what they're being sold. You know, a lot of these people, like you said, you yourself are one of those people that was protesting. So if someone like you can actually go from protesting against Salman Rushdie to being a defender of freedom of expression and blasphemy. I saw your tweet. You had the on your hand, standing apostasy and blasphemy. If someone like you do that, that just shows that shows two things. That shows one, that we should not be bigots against Muslims, because there are gonna be people that will change, right? And two, it shows that we have to continue fighting these ideas. Do you
Completely.
Yeah, do you want to so I've taken a lot of your time. I would love it if you do you have any final words you'd love to say, any advice you have for ex-Muslims or maybe even Muslims or the community in general, how people can help, anything you want to end off the last bit of yours.
I mean, for ex-Muslims, the first thing I say, I think, be proud of yourselves. Leaving Islam is one of the hardest things that anybody can do, and you guys have actually first questioning it and then leaving it. It's amazing, and you should be proud of yourself. And second, highlight your existence, given it doesn't compromises on your security and your safety. Highlighting that helps loads like us, because there are people who are going through questioning, who are going through of that process of coming into terms with their apostasy, and he helps them. Uh, and to Muslims, I mean, we have to create an atmosphere of communication, because essentially we want the same thing. We want our communities to be better. We want our communities to take them towards a place where we can compete in the modern world, where we're not seen as some savages. Unfortunately, there are people who would use these words, uh, but we have to be an equal member of the 21st century. There is no point hanging on to a system, a morality that's cemented in the 7th century. We need to evolve with time and for the better, because there are so many things that in Islam that if we take them on 7th century, and I am sure, I know Muslims would never agree with child marriages, would never agree with slavery, would never agree with killings, but they wouldn't vocalize it just because Islam says otherwise. But if you find something is wrong, even if it's in Islam, if it's, you have to say it's wrong, and let's create an atmosphere of communication, because we need to understand each other. So it happens most of the times that we actually shut down conversation. It happens from both sides, I'm not saying, and I have been guilty of this personally as well. And it depends on the what mental state you're in. Sometimes you just want to have fun, sometimes you just want to disagree for the sake of disagreeing with someone. But overall, let's have some sort of communication structure where we can talk back and forth, where we can understand each other and respect each other's humanity, no matter if we believe or not.
Beautifully said. Actually, one more thing I wanted to ask you, which I think I'd love to know. How is your life now after leaving Islam, after you went through these hard years? At what stage are you now with
I,
your mental health, with your well-being, with your life in general?
I am happy. I am happy with everything. My relationship is great. I have amazing friends. I'm not intrusive. I don't judge people. The relationships I've created after I've been okay with myself have been some of the best friendships, some of the best relationships that I've ever had, and happiness. Yeah, yeah, I cherish it. I am actually, yeah. Yeah, of course, we have troubles, we have problems with lockdown and finances and everything. But it's, if you're okay with yourself, if you are proud of what you stand for, and if you feel like you are contributing positively to the world, that's what matters. And I am happy to answer.
Wonderful. Beautifully said. Just gonna address this one comment because I keep getting it. Every worldview claims exclusivity in its own way. Also, atheism. That does not mean all religions are the same in how they treat others. Yes, I'm definitely not, Veronica. That is true. We're not saying all religions are the same. Sometimes I speak in general and I say religion, and in particular, I'm talking about Islam. I do think that every religion has its issues. Every worldview has its issues, of course. But in general, a message, I believe Ali and myself is that there is no God, and whether you want to believe or you believe, that's okay. That's up to you. What matters is, like you said, how you treat others, right? And that's the important thing. So you're most welcome to believe or disbelieve, but yeah, obviously respect other people's um, dignity and don't be a bigot. Let people be themselves, right? I mean, as long as they're not hurting you, then you have no reason to impinge on their freedoms and rights. I think that's the way we should look at it. The government or society should let people to do whatever they want, as long as they're not going outside of the moral sphere of harming others. Once they harm others, then of course somebody needs to stop that. So I think that Christianity, to be honest, Christianity is good for the world either as a whole, because I see the same sort of things that I see with Islam. When Christianity was in power, we saw a lot of terrible things happening back then that we are now seeing when Islam is in power. And I don't think it would be any different if Christianity became in power again today. Maybe it would be different. I don't know. But that's why we need secularism. We need a separation of state and religion. Religion is private and should be private, and the government should not be influenced by dogma, right? Whatever dogma. It should be doing what's best for the country, right? For the people, and best for the world, frankly, even. I mean, also nationalism is bad too, because it prefers your country to I mean, you do have to take care of your own people first, of course, but you can't do it in a way that is harmful, is a net loss to humanity on the globe. Like if you're taking your garbage and dumping it in Philippines, which is what many countries do, that's not good for the world. Like we have to be sustainable. We need to come up with ways of, anyways. So
No, that's
anyways,
true.
go ahead.
Sorry, we have to close.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
This is interesting because I feel like one of the most common mistakes towards atheism or people when people see atheism through the lens of religion, because it's not. Atheism is not projectile in the same way religion is, because atheism doesn't care if anybody else is atheist or not, because there is no ideology to it. There is nothing to adhere to. It's personal. Yes, you present your point of view to the outer world. It's fine if people accept it. It's fine if people reject it. We don't say if you don't accept atheism, or if you don't if you don't see the same way we see the world, you would be punished for it. No, it's fine. Look beyond the atheism. Atheism is for us. We decide to be atheists if people are. What we talk about when we talk about the outer world, it's about values. It's not about atheism. It's about acceptance. It's about equality. That has nothing to do with atheism. These ideologies doesn't. Atheism is not a subscription that comes with these ideologies. I know atheists who are on the far left of the spectrum, atheists who are on the far left of the spectrum. You can be anywhere, have any political or ideological point of view, and be an atheist, right? It's what matters is it's not atheism, it's the message that's being put forward.
Yeah. And I agree with that. What's more important to me is not my atheism, but is my humanism. It's just that atheism part is important because, again, a lot of things come packaged with the religion that are bad. Like there's a lot of bad dogma that comes with every religion. And I even wrote an essay, an article about the harms that Christianity has done, and it was centered around the U.S. and it was, very much. I think, people like me and you, we don't see that as much. But if you talk to ex-Christians, they see the dangers of evangelicalism much stronger than we do, because they went to Christian schools and they see how the government is like banning stem cell research, or not willing. America didn't send money for contraceptives to Africa because of religious belief. Things like that, where you're not optimizing for well-being, you're not optimizing for the best result, for the consequences. You're optimizing for dogma,
Yeah,
right? Because you're trusting, you put the dogma epistemologically at a higher level than than what you're seeing as a result, because you're trusting, you're making a leap of faith, and you're saying, well, God said this, so it must be better. Not I see that it's better. It must be better. Even if I don't see it, it has to be better, because eventually I'll see it's better.
And
They-
you have to compromise on your curiosity. Of course, you have to, because you're met with God says it. It's the word of God. Who are you to deny it?
yeah. And I said I was going to end, but there's just interesting comments. Not sure what there is to discuss with someone who thinks it's okay to kill others over the religion. Well, I think there's a lot to discuss with someone who thinks that way, because they might change their mind. Like Ali was saying, his some like his your uncle, was it your grandfather's brother,
Yes.
converted to Ahmadi.
Yes, my grandfather's brother.
Yeah, exactly. So your granduncle converted based on talking to people, and he was a hardcore Salafi. He was Salafi anyways. I mean, I converted. So I don't say converted, deconverted. I changed my whole worldview. Ali here was was protesting against Salman Rushdie.
I was.
I mean, that's embarrassing. They didn't say that. I'm sure it's embarrassing, but I'm glad you said it, because people need to realize that, like, discussion does work. Not everybody is totally blinded. There's a lot of reasonable people that are Muslim, that are Pakistani, that for the only reason why they're behaving that way is because they just don't know better, because they were never exposed to
Completely.
the reality, to the big picture of Muhammad, right? So, I mean, we have to be a little bit more, I think we need to have a little bit more empathy for people. We need to realize that, like, so in conclusion, talking to you, I mean, you're a wonderful young man. I'm so glad we had this conversation. I really appreciate how you come across so calmly, and you're able to tell, you've gone through some rough times, obviously, far rougher than I went through. I mean, I was much luckier than you. My family was liberal, and the damage I did was all self-imposed. It wasn't from my family. I did it to myself. I chose to be religious in Saudi. In your case, you had so no choice of your own. You went through all of this religious indoctrination. Your family is gaslighting and bullying, and they're trying to make you, from the, not blaming them, but that's what they think is best for your well-being, but that's not right. But still, I understand. I really appreciate that you're able to talk about this, you're able to share, you're able to come out with your real face and identity. And I appreciate you for doing that, and for the struggles you've been through. I really do appreciate this. And for sharing your insights about Pakistan, and about the particular issues, and trying to fight them. I do appreciate that. I do hope that in the long run your family reconsiders and apologizes for how they behave towards you, because it's not right, for sure, the way that they treated you just based on what you believe. And I hope that, who knows, maybe things will change, maybe they won't, whether or not you are okay, and that's what counts. You know what I mean? You're doing what's important to you, and I really do appreciate that. And thanks for coming, man. It was wonderful.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thanks a lot. I always wanted to be on your channel because your content has always been on the point, and I've always enjoyed it. Uh, yeah, I've never reached out to you to say that, but I'm saying that live. It has been, and I know many people who actually enjoy your content because it's actually quite good, because there is a lot of grit to it. Because when you talk about Islam, it's actually you can realize, okay, this person have known Islam, and intentions matter, because there are people who maybe steal your content, but their intentions are of demonizing Muslims. That's important. We need to be staying away from people who are actually demonizing Muslims, because like our loved ones are still Muslim. Why would we? And who are hateful, they see this face, they're not gonna know it's an ex-Muslim. So people who accuse us of like stirring hatred towards Muslims, now we have no intention of axing our own foot.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. Even outside of that, if I was a never Muslim, based on what I believe now, I mean, that's a very good, compelling reason to not attack Muslims. But even if I was like a white guy that was never Muslim, I would still, just for the sake of, I don't believe in bigotry and hatred towards anybody, no matter what they believe. I think for that reason too, that we should never, assume the worst of people. Thank you for your kind words. What's the best way to reach you? I posted your Twitter handle. Is there anything else? I mean, it's in the description as well.
I think Twitter is the best. And if I am actually working for CMB now, so if you reach me through CMB, I'm Asylum and Refugee Works
Oh,
manager at CMB. So we're helping ex-Muslims claim asylum in Britain, whatever we can, because we're not a legal organization, but we have some solicitors working with us. We can always refer. We provide support letters, and we are planning to do some more asylum and refugee work, because I personally know so many people, so many ex-Muslims from back home or from Islamic countries who find it hard to claim protection in the West. So we want to facilitate that. And I'm doing that with the Council of Ex-Muslims of Britain now.
oh, awesome. It's good to hear. And okay, so thank you for coming. Those of you who are here and you're not subscribed, please do subscribe to the new channel. Unfortunately, my channel has been demonetized until the end of the year. So pretty badly by uploading the same attacker that you were talking about in France, that was Belvi, that made a video. I mean, not made a video. Someone made a video about him where there was a nasheed. It was just a video of the guy, a picture of the guy with nasheed and like hearts flying around. And somehow YouTube saw this as glorifying violence, which it was actually glorifying him. But the original is still on YouTube. The original is still
People who actually glorify him day and night, people who are running political campaigns on the backs of glorifying murderers like that, are on YouTube and Twitter. They
yeah.
are there.
It's unfortunate. We have a long way to go. But anyways, those of you who are new here, please do subscribe, leave a comment, and do check out Ali's Twitter if you're on Twitter. If you have money and you'd like to subscribe and support me financially, support me financially. The link is below as well for my Patreon and my support page. The money does help, and I do appreciate everyone that is supporting me. Thank you to everyone who left a super chat today, Swen and P, and I don't know if I missed another one. And of course, to my fellow mods, Food and Religion, John Stopman, and everyone that helps to keep the chat clean and to keep the conversation healthy. Thank you guys very much as well. And that's it. That's been a wrap. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time we go live. Take care. Bye.
Bye.